Hello, I'm Tara Brabazon and welcome to this, our fourth vodcast on my fourth book. And my fourth book was Liverpool of the South Seas, Perth and its popular music. And Liverpool of the South Seas was published by the University of Western Australia Press, and it was published in 2005. There's a lot to say about this book. It's a very special book for me and it encases a lot of great memories. It was also a book of firsts that we may talk about. Some of those firsts were very positive, some were completely disastrous. But let me tell you a little bit about this book. It is an edited collection. It is my first edited collection, and it is about a popular music industry in a very specific city. Now, there actually is a great trajectory, history and heritage in cultural studies and media studies of these books that look at city music. So straight out of Bristol, Bristol's a great example of a city that's had many books written about it. Austin in Texas is another, and obviously Manchester as well. My wonderful husband, Professor Steve Redhead, edited a collection titled Rave Off that looked at rave and acid house in Manchester, and the legendary, wonderful man C.P. Lee, a big hello to C.P., wrote Shake, Rattle and Rain, which was a history of Manchester music. So there is a great heritage and trajectory of books written about an individual city and their music. So when in the early 2000s Perth started to gain national and a little bit of international profile for its popular music in rock, post-rock, art rock, but also electronica, I thought maybe this is the moment to take one of the most isolated capital cities in the world and probe and explore its sonic textures and its sonic landscapes. I was also in a very odd and wonderful and extraordinary position at this time. I was at Murdoch University in Western Australia, which is also very close to Fremantle, and the Fremantle music scene, which also became important here. But at Murdoch University, I had the great privilege, remarkable privilege, of supervising many PhD students at one particular time. So, like in the case of Rave Off, I had the opportunity of allowing my students who were being supervised at this point to write a chapter, be an ethnographer, if you will, and tell me and tell readers something about a slice of Perth's popular music. So my PhD students at the time went out into the world, well really went out into Perth, and wrote 2,000, 3,000, 5,000 words about a particular scene, a particular building, a particular pub, a particular club, a particular series of immigrant experiences and the music that they carry with them. So it was an incredibly liberating experience for me. It was my first edited collection, which was tremendous, and that conveyed a whole series of opportunities. So I learnt how to edit a book, but also challenges, because I cared so much about these students, and it was for many of them, the overwhelming majority of them, their first publication. So it was a very precious experience, and I wanted it to be a really positive one for them. And the resultant research that they created is simply remarkable. The book holds together very well, and like the best of those city music books, it captures its moment, and that therefore allows it to travel through time. And it's been very heavily cited, like many of those city books, as they all talk to each other and understand how and why a particular place at a particular time becomes famous. So I'm very proud of it as a book. And it has a great history and a heritage, as well as being incredibly local, and proud of its localism. But let me tell you about some of the negative elements of this experience. As vodcast viewers may know, in our previous 3 vodcasts, I'd published with the University of New South Wales Press for my first 3 books, and it was a really positive, wonderful experience. But because this was a Perth-based book, I thought it was important that it had a Perth-based publisher. So that's why I approached the University of Western Australia Press. I'm a former University of Western Australia girl, so I thought it was important that I actually acknowledge the place and publish in the place as well. That didn't go too well. It was not a very good experience. In fact, it was a dreadful experience. I've published 17 books. This publisher was the worst. This publishing experience was the worst. The editor treated us quite cruelly, disrespected us, and I think the disrespect came from being an elite or posh university press and deeming to demonstrate an interest in popular music. So we were really treated like second, third, fourth class citizens who dare to sort of write about something as tacky as popular culture. So we were managing that sort of cultural bias, and then we were really managing a truly appalling editorial process. When I try to explain to people how dreadful this experience was, I really only have to talk about the sub-editor who was hired to handle this book. When people ask me about sub-editors, I often use this example because this guy was like he was from Monty Python's The Meaning of Life, or indeed Monty Python's Life of Brian, even more precisely. Those of you that know Monty Python, in Life of Brian there is the People's Front of Judea, or the Judean People's Front. So this gentleman was from a very small Trotskyite splinter cell. And he really wanted to explain to me the nature of the importance of that particular mode of communism and why that particular mode of communism needed to really frame and shape this already existing book. So I was dealing with a sub-editor who was from a Trotskyite cell who really wanted to get the permanent revolution happening, ladies and gentlemen, and he thought he would do that through sub-editing Liverpool of the South Seas, Perth and its popular music. So we had this gentleman who was offering all sorts of comments to me, because after all I was only a woman and clearly wouldn't understand music, and you know that's an interesting refrain in the rest of my career as well. A woman writing about music confronts particular challenges, and this book was really the first example of that. So I had this truly appalling sub-editor who actually by the end was removed from the project. So then we had sort of playing catch-up, removing all the errors that the sub-editor had put into the text and then starting again in a fresh and clean way. So it was a dreadful experience, it was a dreadful publisher, and whenever anyone asked me is there any publisher I would not go to, I would never, ever, ever, ever publish with the University of Western Australia Press. It was a diabolical, really dreadful experience, so stay away from these guys. I feel very lucky that we got a great book out of this, but it was a lot of good luck and a lot of persistence and a lot of tears, to be honest with you. I cried a lot through publishing this book, cried on the lounge suite of the crazy people that I was dealing with. And because it was other people's work, my PhD students' work, I cared about it even more. And so I was used to this really positive experience at the University of New South Wales Press, and then I confronted this situation, and it was dreadful. So while it is a dreadful publishing process, I remain incredibly proud of this book, and as I said, it has travelled internationally and survives through people's footnotes, so that's a great thing. And it's a wonderful experience, I think, to have a Perth-based book and a book about Perth popular culture and popular music, really speaking to its present and speaking to its future. I've always argued that the best academic work sometimes has that journalistic function, so it comments on its present for the future, and the PhD students that are in this book went on to graduate and have all gone on to incredible work both inside and outside the university system. It does work that seam between academic writing and journalistic writing, and it does so with great pride, and I think that's important, but it also value added to the doctoral experience. And for supervisors who may be watching this podcast, I really would recommend this. If you have the great privilege and the great pleasure of living in a place where something is happening, to popular culture. So something sporting emerges or something in terms of popular music. Why not use this group, this PhD group of students that you have, to capture that moment? It helps their career, and it also helps, I think, the university brand itself as a place where interesting work happens. So this book, even though it was a truly dreadful publishing experience, was a really inspirational experience in terms of enabling new researchers. And I've gone on to do a lot of that work in my future career that we're going to talk about. But this was a book that crystallised a community-based organisation called the Popular Culture Collective, and a big hello to all my great colleagues and friends around the world in the Popular Culture Collective. And this group, this organisation, has gone on to produce, I think, 5 or 6 books. So I'm incredibly proud of this group. And the title and the name of this group is important. It is about popular culture, but it is a collective. And it is this loose organisation of men and women who come together every couple of years or so, write an interesting project up, and then disperse back into their own lives. So the Popular Culture Collective, our first book, was this one, and I think and believe we should be incredibly proud of it. More personally, this book is special to me. I'm a Perth girl. I was born in Perth, Western Australia. I've been a musician for a lot of my career. I love music. I love popular culture. And so for me, this book remains a love song to the city that gave me my start and the city that gave me my birth. I'm incredibly proud to come from Perth in Western Australia. It is a city that is abused randomly throughout much of the rest of the country, but I'm terribly proud to have come from there. I'm terribly proud to have educated tens of thousands of people through my career at Murdoch University, including the remarkable doctoral students that are represented in this book. But it was clear when I edited this book that we were probably going to be leaving the city. So it is a love song to Perth in Western Australia as I was leaving it. So I'm proud of this city, I'm proud of this book, and I'm proud of the truly great scholars that have represented themselves so well within it. And for me, Liverpool of the South Seas, Perth and its popular music captures what senior scholars should be doing in our universities, supporting our junior colleagues as they move through the ranks, teaching them about writing and editing, and also teaching them what happens when publishing goes wrong. So a great project, a wonderful project that happened to be published by a truly diabolical publisher.